over the March, then April, and then June, right?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, on this very, very hot June 19th. Hopefully everybody is doing their best to stay cool. We'll start off with our land acknowledgement. On June 19th, 2024, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for this land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:02. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Now, there is one thing that I would like to add to the agenda, and that is just to set a date for the Railway Museum Roundtable discussion involving Gloria Foster. And she would like that to happen in the next few weeks, so if we could discuss that at an appropriate time, that'd be great. Is there any other additions?
I have two things, just really quick little things. We can get to them at the end if you want, but one is just I wanted to kind of give Duncan J a little shout out for what they did. And the second thing is about the subway. You know what I'm talking about? The one by the
I'm
train
sorry, I
station.
can't hear you.
The foot subway, the one by the train station.
Yeah. And what was your first item?
Oh, Duncan J School. They did something 5 days ago. I just wanted to
Oh, okay.
kind of give a little shout out and acknowledge what they did. I thought it was great.
I'll add those to, I'll let you know where they're at in the agenda.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll continue on with our procedure to move to approve that agenda as amended. So could I have someone move that, please? Councilor McGuire, thank you. Could I have someone second, please? Stephanie Cates, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. And you'll notice that we have regrets from Corey Agnew this evening. So we'll ensure that he gets brought up to date with our meeting. So we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. Does everybody have a copy of the minutes from March and May?
And I did make an error, so we'll have to amend them because it says agenda on the May 28th meeting minutes. It says agenda, so I will amend that.
Oh, thank you. And does anyone have any questions about them? Seeing none. I just had one quick thing in the March minute structure, Clark, if we could. If you look on, I'm just going to find it here again. If you look on the last page where it talks about the portable ramps research report back, the first point where it says that Chair Bingley and myself had found a good example of a federal building and that I would like it to say provincial.
Provincial? Okay.
It was the legislature in Toronto as well, as opposed to in Ottawa. Is there anything else that anyone would like amended before we adopt? No? Seeing none, okay, so we'll procedurally adopt said minutes. So could I have someone move to approve them? Courtney, thank you. Could I have someone second? Heidi, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. All right, we'll move on with our disclosures of monetary interest. Does anyone have any disclosures? No, seeing none. We have no delegations this evening, so we will move on to our priority issues. The first one you'll notice is crosswalk placement, and I had brought that forward. I'm not sure. I think there was some discussion around having a crosswalk where you would cross from the Royal Bank over to State 2. I feel like there was some discussion around that during the Becca Street Ready development, and just looking for some clarification on that. So, Councillor McGuire or Mayor Panko, I'm not sure if you could.
I remember that discussion well, and several local businessmen came to a meeting of council and presented on how the new street was going to negatively impact the downtown, and one of those concerns was traffic flow. And at the time, we didn't have the technology to be able to take the crosswalk and tie it into the streetlights, because the streetlights are all synchronized. So there was concern that if somebody pressed the crosswalk button while the lights were green, it could lose that light cycle or slow down the traffic. In hindsight, the world didn't end and the traffic didn't back up the way it was predicted by these gentlemen. So I definitely think it's definitely a regret of mine that I didn't, stand behind that crosswalk, because I thought maybe it would be, the technology would come where we could sync it with the lights. I don't know if it really matters, because when you press those buttons, it's such a quick walk across, and it only stops, like you see the one here, it never backs up traffic. But maybe now's the time to look at that again. I don't know.
Mayor?
Yeah, I think it's when the redevelopment was completed, electrical services were provided to that corner, should we decide to make those changes in the future. And under MTO rules, we couldn't put another light there, too many lights in such a short period of short space. But I think to Councillor McGuire's comments, I think two factors. One, it was about $200,000 savings at the time if we didn't go ahead with that intersection being approved in that way. But also the concern about traffic flows for sure. And we see that any comments I've had since, the traffic flows very well. Same as concerns we had at the intersection of Beckwith and Elmslie, and people saying, well, you take out the free-flowing right turning lane, you're going to have traffic backed up all the way to Cornelia. And of course, that's not the case at all. There's been no traffic issues there. So I think it's I would say, sort of simmering in the background. There's a thought that we could still put a crossover there. And I respect it's still, to go all the way up and all the way down, or whichever way you want to go, it really adds to the distance. And we don't see people continue to cross here regardless. And it's not safe to do so. There's no way for traffic to really know you're crossing. And you really have to get out past the nodes, the flower beds, in order, or you walk on the street. So I think from an action standpoint, is there a specific action you would like to see? Would you like the town to, for council to consider the installation? I guess that's a decision of the committee, or advocate, and that would put it on staff's radar to look at the possibilities and the cost, and maybe where it fits into our asset management plan, and whether it's something we could consider next year or the year after in a budget, from a budget standpoint.
I do think that would be a good consideration, or at least to have a feature to substitute a crosswalk if it's not, like to have a temporary solution until a set time that it could be installed. Is there any other?
I would be in favor of it being motion to the town to present again. for accessibility.
Stephanie?
So, in reference to, are you talking about doing a similar walk like the one that's at the corner here?
Yes.
So then my comment would be, is there a specific time setting on them that can be adjusted, or is that a setting that's
Oh, how long they would stay?
how long they stay? I have found, I've watched some people and crossed myself, and I find that it's tight. You gotta walk across that.
Yeah.
So if anybody, I've seen somebody with a walker trying to get across there,
You would
I
hope.
mean, people have to, the law is that they are to wait until somebody is completely across. The concern is that if there's not that flashing light for a little bit longer, we already know people don't like to follow the rules as it is, but I was just wondering if there is a set standard for how long the lights flash. If that could be extended, even like as long as, I mean, the rule is if somebody crosses, they have to wait till they're completely across.
Yes.
But if that light could flash a little bit longer, I think it might.
So, Madam Chair, I believe that's the standard, but I also believe it could be adjusted.
Okay.
So that's something we can pass on to Director McMahon and the appropriate staff.
Because my thought is too, the corner that we are talking about, based on the way the sidewalks and everything are, it's a longer distance even to get from one to the other because of the bump outs that are there, whereas the one here does not have, it's a narrower crossing.
Yeah, it was designed that way, right?
Yeah.
So we would have to redesign. It'd be more than just a pedestrian crossover there. We'd have to redesign that intersection.
Yeah, and I understand that, I just feel that I needed
So
to
it
be
would be more
stated.
cost. Yeah.
And then my concern was the length of time that the lights flash.
Good point.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, feedback, anything? Councilor McGuire?
Yeah, I guess maybe if we took a look at the active transportation plan, because I think it has things like this in it. And I know that Public Works is looking at operationalizing that and coming up with a plan to roll out stuff. So if there's other priorities in that plan for us as a committee, maybe we want to flag them and say, 3 years we want to see this, 5 years we want to see that, or kind of come up with there's probably other ones too, that might be important to us.
That's a good point, yeah. It's good to keep things on the radar, and if this particular crosswalk brings that up, all the better. We can start the ball rolling with that, and Mayor Panko.
Has that plan been shared with committee? No, not this term anyway.
I don't believe
Was it last term? Do you know?
this.
Okay. Well, maybe we should have it shared. Maybe we should have a presentation.
Yeah.
So we have an understanding of what it is and what the plan is going forward as we redevelop streets and sidewalks, but the things that are in addition to that to try and help enable a better pedestrian and active transportation safety.
Yeah. So if we could maybe, if everybody's in favor, maybe we could coordinate a representative to perhaps do a delegation about the active transportation plan, and maybe even have a copy of it, and we can move with it.
Yeah, we have it distributed first and then have a delegation at a future meeting.
Everybody's in favor, but I do think if council could talk about that crosswalk and see if there's something that can be done, at least in the meantime, until such time that we can firm things up, that would be wonderful.
So do you want to I know that Heidi mentioned making a motion to recommend. Do you want to make a motion that the committee recommend to council to revisit this?
Sure. So we'll
I guess what wording would you propose?
Well, not like I just said it. That the committee recommends council because it's already been a conversation, right? So that the committee recommends the mayor and council revisit the construction of a pedestrian crosswalk or PXO at that intersection.
Yeah.
And Beckwith and William? Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we probably have staff. We send some of our student engineering students out to sort of observe. I think we did it before, maybe 2 years ago. Our pedestrian behavior there, people crossing regardless, right? And just to see what type of activity is happening there.
So are we just so I'm clear, are we asking for like revisit the conversation, revisit the development, revisit the need? What are we looking for? What are we asking council to consider? To consider the requirement?
The consideration of a walkway being placed at the corner of Beckwith and William Street, the reconsideration of a placement. Put it that way. Okay. That's great.
Okay, is everyone clear on what that is?
All right, so I will have someone move that motion, please.
I will move it.
Thank you. And could I have someone second, please? Courtney, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried, so we'll get that done. Thank you, Director Clark, for your.
We're implicated.
And I do as well.
Group effort.
Group efforts are always a good thing. Okay, so I think we have addressed that crosswalk placement very well with that motion. So that brings us to our second priority issue, being the BIJ forum. Talking about how the committee, this committee, could be involved in that project, and Mayor Panko has graciously offered to lead that discussion. So Mayor Panko.
Sure, thank you. As I mentioned last month, I attended the big forum, the Basic Income Guarantee Forum in Ottawa back in just before the last meeting, and it was very insightful. A lot of feedback from people who were part of the Ontario Basic Income Pilot back in 2018 and 2019, and how much their lives were changed even for that period of time they were part of the program. Of course, they only lived for about a year, but it really helped. As I mentioned last month, every single one said their mental health improved immensely, like immediately, because all of a sudden they had a little more cash flow each month, a little more ability to even simply pay the bills, and to start to think about how am I going to now improve my life. And so some went back to school, some were able to get a job, some started a business. And although the province had basically burned or buried all of the evidence of the program, different groups went around through social media, were able to get in touch with, I think, about 300 participants. And then so started to survey the results. That's why there is some results from it. Otherwise, there'd be no evidence of the success of it. But the other big part of it, of course, is a large percentage of the people living with lower incomes, as we know, are living with disabilities. And so the province, in many ways, and the federal government, has imposed that level of poverty on people with insufficient levels of ODSP or OW, CPP disability, whatever it may be. And so in many ways, they've created this challenge and these limitations for people who simply are unable to work full time or unable to work because of disabilities. So it's the Smiths Falls for All Committee passed a resolution indicating support for bills C-223, 230, one in the Senate, one in the House of Commons, that the government basically designed and implement a basic income program. And it's carried some traction. Perth is now going to be adopting it next week, I think, will be their meeting. It's been before Tay Valley Township. So we asked that other municipalities consider it. So it's getting some traction. We had another one I know this week, I'm not sure where it was, but a township or a town somewhere. So it's getting some acknowledgement, but there's a real connection to this committee, I believe, because of the reality that the current programs keep people in poverty. And then we know that the issues that can arise because of that, and we know that there's higher healthcare costs in many cases. If nutrition becomes a factor, there's long-term impacts on people's health. So a lot of reasons why the province should be, and the Fed should be looking beyond the current programs. And basic income is one which is not, I won't say it's novel because it was around before. It's gaining new prominence. PEI is in the process of launching a pilot project. The Newfoundland has a project in place now for people 61 to 64, 60 to 64, I believe. Some countries in the world are looking at it as well. Some I think are doing pilot projects. South Africa is actually considering it. So it's a reality that everything we've been doing so far hasn't been working. So I don't know if there's a role for this committee or not, but I thought we would, as I mentioned last month, have a discussion on it and see if we should be doing something about it.
Well, I think, this committee could play a role in at least having a voice to have a project like this going, seeing the success stories, that really brings to light. We could be part of that solution. And wouldn't that be nice to have a success story, perhaps, come from Smith Falls even?
Well, it's really life-changing, right? So imagine the people who are living on fairly modest fixed income all of a sudden had maybe another $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 a month, right? How life-changing that would be, the opportunities that would now exist that did not exist before.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie?
I think we definitely need to support it as an individual who is in this situation. That income, that additional income would be massive. I'm, for instance, currently in need of hearing aids and a CPAP machine, and I have no benefits. I'm looking at a minimum of $1,000 for each item.
If you're lucky.
That's after the assistive devices programs that are available for those particular items. So without any ability to have quote unquote extra money, I mean, I'm already scraping every month to be able to afford basic needs, let alone other items that should be considered essential items. But they're currently out of hand for me. There's just no other way to look at them because I am on a CPP disability and not an ODSP. Even though I'm a member of this province and I've lived in this province most of my life, I don't have entitlement to the benefits that are out there for other medical coverages because of the CPP. And I think kind of a side issue there, but it's something that if there was a program in place for that basic income, that's just a little bit something extra that I would be able to over time accumulate to be able to get my essentials for helping me in day-to-day life.
I think that's a very good point, Stephanie, and I know too, there's, say if you're on a couple of different services, for example, if you're on, I don't know, CPP and ODSP, I know there's a cutoff of how much money you can earn and parameters around that. And I'm wondering if that could be something that this project could help address, to help be able to bridge that gap for people that the cutoff is too low for them to be able to meet their basic needs. 100%. Is there any other questions, comments, concerns?
I guess the question becomes, how we can simply say we endorse resolution that was passed by council, and we couldn't do it right now. We can simply bring it next month, I guess, and ask if the committee wants to endorse it. I don't know if there's further outreach we could be doing. And
Yeah,
that's the one thing that the pilot, we had great feedback on the pilot. But, and we know that, as I mentioned last month, 10% of our citizens rely on ODSP, very, very modest income. Others live on OW, which they're maybe waiting for ODSP, but they're living on even less because of the wait to get onto ODSP. We have seniors who are living with great disabilities. We have people who are on other, I want to say CPP disability or even work disability pensions that are fixed amounts that maybe they were okay when they first were disabled 10 years ago, but the index to inflation, they're going to be, the purchasing power is gone today. So I don't, it'd be great to have some understanding even from the community as to basically a little bit of an explanation about what a basic income could mean. It's hard to define it because there's no parameters. We don't know if it would be 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. Like there's no way of saying. So it might be the challenge, I guess, when it comes to doing any consultation would be, well, how much more would I get? And we really have no idea. But maybe it's food for thought. Maybe it's something we can think about and bring it back in the future where we can do some consultation on people living with disabilities, and so that could be part of maybe an outreach, part of it, an analysis, say what impact does your disability have on your life, so we have a better understanding of maybe actions we can be taking.
I think that's a good point. Does anybody have maybe some potential ideas of how we could start maybe thinking about some outreach for people? Any specific outlets, communication outlets that anyone's thinking of to do that? Anything? Councillor McGuire?
Be an online survey.
Yeah, that would perhaps maybe something on Speak Up Smith Falls or something along those lines would that work?
Oh, Courtney.
Mayor Baker?
Well, go ahead, Courtney.
Is there like a town email that people could like write to with their experiences or things that like kind of what Mayor Benko was just talking about, like sharing how it impacts them with like their disability and stuff.
Mayor Benko or Stephanie or?
I mean, we could design a survey, and it could be available online. It could be available paper copies. We can get it distributed, and be a matter of what are the answers we're seeking. And I mean, we go as far as talk about barriers in our town. I mean, we know there's a lot of businesses which, if you have limited mobility, you cannot access. But we also know that's not the only form of disability people live with, and so it's a matter of saying what if we're going to make the difference we want to make through this committee. I think we need to understand the questions before we provide, I guess, the answer. So what are those challenges that people with disabilities are facing every day, and what type of responses are they getting from the community, both corporately? So how is the town doing? Is there areas where we are failing, for lack of a better word, I guess, or we're not where we need to be? And then aside from that, other places where people interact with the private sector, etc.
Yeah, I think if we could develop a list of questions to assist those in figuring out how to answer, because sometimes you just send out, we're looking for your information, like how could we help you? I think that's very difficult for some people to answer. If we could establish a number of questions, have a really simple, basic questionnaire, but we could also provide it at some of the community lunches, have a table set up one day. Well, we really only have 2 community lunches right now on Mondays and Fridays. There's a bag lunch on Wednesdays, but we could have a table set up at each place maybe, and then also maybe provide it through the healthcare providers in town, like Rideau Community Health Center, where they're in touch with so many of the community members already, but also the nurse practitioner and our local doctor's offices. Get them to those places, because they're the people that they see every day, day in, day out.
Great idea. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and maybe multiple methods of survey being completed, because not everyone has access to technology.
Well, and that's why I was
Literacy
thinking if we
issues,
do it
maybe.
at the luncheon, like the Falls Food Hub lunch on Mondays, if we had a table there, I find that a number of people are very curious whenever there's a table set up. And that would provide a paper copy for somebody to easily assist them to do that. And that would be another avenue for those that don't have access to some of it, and at least maybe even have copies to hand out where they could fill them out and put them in the drop boxes in town.
I think that would be a good idea, and it's a good way for people to not only to have input, but maybe they don't want the whole town to know they're having input.
Yeah.
So, you know, it would be a good way for them to discreetly fill out form. Drop it in Dropbox and no one knows.
Or even if we had them at the pharmacies for people to pick them up if they wanted to. Because we know so many people use a pharmacy, so it's an easy access point for somebody to just quickly pick it up and take it, and it's discreet.
Yes.
Nobody's asking them any questions or anything. It's on their own time. Put a
Yes.
time limit on it to have it returned, but at least it gives people another option to be able to access that.
Mr. Mayor Peck.
So from a method standpoint, I guess we need someone or some people to prepare the questions. So what information do we want to seek? And I don't know if Stephanie, you have any thoughts on how best to do this, but I'm wondering if there's even a subcommittee of this group that would want to take maybe an extra hour or so in the next month, just to put their heads together and come up with a whole bunch of questions. And maybe there's some maybe there's some surveys out there now that we could draw from, but that might be a good starting point.
I think if you're gonna ask anybody fairly specific personal questions, we need to be very conscious that we're gonna be treating this information quite seriously and with the utmost of care, confidentiality. And I think the second thing is, so we need to define what we're going to do with the information. Because it's one thing to ask questions and get the information back, but in terms of my experience doing research, if you don't know what you want to do with the information, there's so many ways you could go, and then usually we don't go anywhere. So I think if we have a clearly defined outcome, whether it's to build advocacy or create a campaign of awareness or to lobby the federal or provincial government, like whatever that looks like, to lobby council, to lobby the federal or provincial government, got ahead of myself there, then we should be clear about what our end goal is while we're developing the questions, because that will also shape what kind of questions we're asking.
Courtney.
I feel like we kind of need to, if we're going in the direction of like lobbying them to go with the money plan thing, that we need to show that there's a need for it. So like within our community, so we kind of need to see the need for it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Does make total sense. Stephanie.
I would be willing to step up to be on that subcommittee. I have some contacts at a couple of local organizations, I think, that would be able to help us create better questions to put forward that wouldn't put people in a situation where they would be afraid to answer a question. So I'd be willing to be part of that committee.
Okay. Perfect. Director Clark, do you want to,
In the minutes.
do we want to establish that committee this evening, or perhaps next meeting? Give everybody a chance to. Sure.
If I may suggest, maybe if we give people a bit of time that we maybe could submit some questions, if you guys have any questions, if we could submit them. And then maybe have our committee formed for, like, do we want to do it? Do we want to wait till the next meeting to do a committee, or do we want to do this before? I think we're okay if we wait till the next meeting, but that would give us, all of us here, a few weeks to be able to submit some questions that you think people may be interested in answering
Okay.
to help form that. It would help give us guidance from any of the members on the accessibility committee. And then we can form a committee from there and then organize a survey. And at that point, I think the end result, I think personally, is we should be taking it to upper levels of government. We're a town that desperately needs something. There's many more in this town that are in such a delicate situation that I think we really need to push and advocate for our own town.
Yes, for sure. Do need to have that, and I think that's a great thing that we're thinking of doing it to get that survey done and distributed and get the ball rolling. So, but I do think maybe waiting. I like your idea, Stephanie, of waiting and giving the other committee members a chance to sort of submit some questions and then form the subcommittee from there. That would give us all a chance, and obviously Corey, who's not here, could have a chance, and we all could.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good idea. Is there anyone else that I've missed with questions or comments? No? Seeing none?
So do everybody want to send the questions to me and I'll collect them? Okay.
Which direction are we going in with the questions?
Whatever your heart desires, maybe.
Jennifer?
Put them all on the table?
Yes. All right, so I think that will wrap up that priority issue. So we will move on to item C, which is a Parks and Recreation update, and I will get Director Clark to lead that discussion.
Thank you. So the Community Services Department is working with Public Works to install some sidewalks in some of our in neighboring playgrounds, which is helpful. So because you can't get to them right now. So we're looking at installing a sidewalk. I'm not sure of the time frame on this. This is coming from my colleague Vanessa Bernicki, and I didn't ask about time frame specifically enough for her to respond about time frame specifically enough. So this summer is when it's coming. So we'll be placing a sidewalk on Lee Avenue North to the Parkette, which is kind of around the corner, and Lombard North side from Beckwith to Victoria Park. So it's going to be down the strip there. We are also going to be placing a sidewalk at Park Street to the structure. I believe that is the structure being Murphy Park. So we're going to be placing a sidewalk there. We've also recently done a curb cut so that you can access, even though it's onto the grass, you can access the pedestrian bridge that's across there by the water treatment plant. So that's kind of exciting because we're improving those things. And I appreciate my colleagues in Public Works and their assistance, and also them taking some of that on their capital budget for us. So that's great. We also have a September install date just hammered out last week from our for a number of our play structures. So up in Highland Corbett, we're getting an inclusive spinner, and so the Revolution Inclusive Spinner. It's a merry-go-round, but I don't think they're allowed to call them merry-go-rounds anymore. Anyway, children using wheelchairs have a space to ride on the spinner, and there's room for a caregiver to assist a child that's on the spinner as well. And we're having rubberized matting installed surrounding the spinner, so there's an easier transition from the ground to get onto the play structure. So that's kind of exciting. We're also we're taking down. I know some people will be very sad about this, but because it is probably it's one of the best used structures in town. The wooden play structure at Lower Reach is probably decades past its lifespan. I think it's a little It's a little soft. I understand that it's not built for a 42-year-old woman that's 165 pounds, but I also understand that it's probably past its prime. So that being said, we're going to be taking that down, and as part of our ongoing sort of revolution of Lower Reach, this is we understand that the play structures are going to be staying in the same spot because that's an area that's been capped a long time ago. So we won't be moving those if we ever change anything in Lower Reach redesign. So we're pretty confident that we'll be able to keep that stuff there. In the interim, we don't really have great swings in that area, so we're going to be putting in accessible swings on a standard frame. So we won't be replacing it with a full play structure. That's down the road a little bit, but we do want to make sure that swings are available, because if you've been to Lower Reach, you have to go way one way to find the swings or across the road to another spot to find them. So trying to keep everything together. And as I said, it's accessible and it's for ages 5 to 12. And so I know some people don't necessarily recognize, but play structures are designed for a wide range of ages. Sometimes they're 1 to 12, sometimes they're 1 to 5, sometimes they're 5 to 12. If you're ever curious, there is a sticker or a metal plate on the side, and sometimes the one at Lower Reach is very large. And so that just gives, it's a guidance. You're not allowed at 12, when you turn 13, it's not like we kick you off, but it is developmentally, they're designed to challenge kids in that age range around their, their child development, those kinds of things. So we do recommend that if you're not 5, then you shouldn't be on a swing that's, or a play structure that's built for 5-year-olds, but that's also up to parents, and that's their prerogative. We're also at the Lee Avenue Playground, which is getting a sidewalk as well to access it. We're looking more broadly in terms of inclusivity. So there's a couple of solo spinners that will allow for, they've been specifically designed for young people with autism to help them self-regulate, do some stimulation, stimulate their vestibular systems, improve their balance, that kind of thing, provide special coordination opportunities. There's a hangout seat, so you can just hang out. Sometimes you need to chill out if you're, overregulated, overstimulated. And there's another couple of, like a hammock kind of net that enables young people with autism to be a part of the play space, but also not directly in the play space. We're focusing on some tactile opportunities and some different colors and things like that to help kids with visual impairments. I was going to speak about it now, but I think I'm going to wait because you added something to the agenda, so we won't talk about the communication boards, but we'll get there. We also have a play space at Lee Avenue for toddlers. We don't have a lot of spaces for toddlers to play, so there's like it's called Perfect Pitch, and it's like a musical kind of interaction thing. So sorry to the neighbors in advance. It's not that loud actually. So. But yeah, we're excited because this will help. Play is such a powerful thing for young people. It's how we learn boundaries. It's as people. It's how we engage with our peers. It's how we socialize. It's how kids learn how to grow. And so we want to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible. And the council gave us that direction, and we've been able to work with a really great playground planner. I think actually is their name, Playground Planners. To come up with some really great play structures for this community, which I think, we're a town that deserves nice things, so we're gonna get them. And that's our update.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like there's some very exciting things coming, so thank you for your work on that. Stephanie?
I'm just wondering, does the town promote things like that are coming up? Has it ever been posted on any social medias or anything? I mean, we often hear, and as soon as you said a structure's coming down, I just felt the negativity coming from the community already, and they don't know. But if you could, I was wondering, is there any plans to have that promoted through the town websites and socials that let's really push the good stuff that's coming? Yes, something has happened, but look what's coming.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we're not going to take it down and then just languish for the summer. Yeah. The plan is to take it down, put something up, because we feel that too. But no, we want to make sure that we actually want to bring it here first, just to run it by you guys, but and keep you posted. But we, as we get some photos and things like that, we want to make sure that it's a little bit closer to the time to release that information, because it is important that you're right. We need to get people excited about stuff.
Yeah. I think it's great. That's awesome to hear all this wonderful stuff that's coming. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, I just had a concern about the slide at Lower Reach, and that they drop from the slide to the ground is too great, especially for little kids.
Yes. So to that end, that is not the play structure that's coming down. Our hope is that play structure will be rebuilt, will be replaced at some point. There is a useful life left in that. That is one of our highest used facilities in terms of just observation. And so what happens is the chips get pushed to the side, and so they get pushed underneath. We actually, even though it may not seem that we've addressed it, every time it's come to our attention, and also during our playground inspections, we consistently, it's called fluffing the chips. We continue to, I can't believe it's in my vocabulary. But anyway, fluff the chips regularly. But the more kids play, the more they get pushed aside. And so the metal structure that's actually underneath that holds the play structure down sometimes gets exposed, which is concerning, of course. So we've put significant amounts of chips in that area, and we'll continue to do so. And so we are on top of it.
Keep building it up, I guess.
Yeah, and we continue to build it up. The other thing is that play structure is for a significantly larger age gap than most structures in town. And so it's not actually built for a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old to be on that slide. So, we just ask that parents use their good judgment. It is a bit of a jump. It's not for a 12-year-old. And so you have to kind of consider it that way. And so while that's not necessarily the answer that everybody wants to hear, but, we're hopeful that parents are making those choices to protect their kids. And if they don't think that it's an appropriate space for their kid to be playing, they shouldn't bring them onto that space. And so, we just want them to understand that this is built for upwards of up to a 12-year-old in that particular structure. And so it has to incorporate them as well. So
It indicates a minimum age should be 5.
yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that listed on that?
Yeah, it's giant on the outside.
Yeah.
I want to say it might actually, I have to double check. It might actually be younger than 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember either.
I do recall, though, it's one of the larger gaps that we have because it's over 5 or 7 years, which is a significant. You've seen kids grow; they grow rapidly, especially when they're gangly 12-year-olds. So, yes, we do recognize that it's a bit of a drop. It's not necessarily a drop that's built for a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old.
Okay. Second question: the sound or musical or sensory items going into Lee, like fixed musical instruments, like xylophone things?
That sort of thing, yeah.
Okay, excellent. That'd be great. Now, too loud, we'll get maybe complaints from the neighbors saying the kids are over there banging on things, making it too loud. I can't grasp it. Hopefully that's not.
They're not typically that loud.
But I think they're great.
Yeah.
Third question, just regarding parks, because I have had pretty negative comments about the Alexander Park in the area. Actually, some pretty belligerent, rude comments, unfortunately. But so that wasn't part of the original plan, but there's some visioning going on.
Yes. So one of the things that there's a number of different things that go into planning for parks and playground spaces and that type of thing. And one of them is looking at density and neighborhoods. And realistically, typically what you would find in a community of 10 to 12,000 people, your density would be in the catchment area of between, I would say, 0.5 kilometers and 1 kilometer, 1 to 2,000 people. So Alexander Park wouldn't meet that threshold. So I am getting some data from the planning department. We're looking at numbers of households in that area. We also have to recognize it's on the border. Not all of those homes belong to Smiths Falls and are residents of Smiths Falls. And so if we do, for example, put it in a really beautiful premium play structure, which would be a nice thing to have in every community, in every area of the community, if the majority of those that are using it from a different township, then we need to really consider, is it fair to ask our residents to pay for that? And in my mind, also as an employee of the town of Smiths Falls, I would say no. That doesn't mean we can't put something there, but we also recognize that that's been I don't want to say it's neglected, but it needs a lot of love, and we are well aware of that. And so on the plan this year, and actually we've undertaken it recently, was to make sure that we add trees. We've planted a number of trees up there. We also are taking down the play structures. The swing set, I did see some commentary that people do believe that it's safe. In fact, it's not anchored in the same way that it should be. So we didn't put the swings up this year because we didn't feel that it was safe enough for kids to play, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. So the swing set is coming. It may have actually come down today. And that weird dinosaur-looking massive metal. I'm sure it was really fun at one time.
I played on that.
Yeah, don't date yourself. There you go.
50 years ago.
Yeah, so that's also a relic of the past and one of those play structures that wouldn't really be allowed to be installed at this juncture in this century. So that's come down as well, and we're also removing I mean, it was fun when I was a kid too, but we are also eventually going to be removing the backstop because it's when it was a ball field. I've looked back at some of the stats, not all of them, but some of them, it was vastly underutilized and nobody wanted to go there. So we are looking at engaging with the community this summer. We would like to hear from them, the neighbors specifically. So we have a plan. We're just hammering out some dates. We were looking at some cool days. There's a day for everything. There's like a National Freezy Day. There's a Canada Parks Day, but not a Parks Canada Day, but a Canada Parks Day. So we want to do something where our staff go out and actually have a direct conversation, because it's really easy to say something on Facebook, which has been particularly not flattering about that particular park, which is fine. But it's more, we actually want to hear what you really are interested in. The other thing that we flagged it as is an area for a couple of mini forests. We do have water access up there, which could potentially lead to some kind of maybe a community garden, or we've talked to Real about mini forests and that kind of thing as well. So we want to beautify the space and help people come into it. But we also recognize, and this is the long way to say, we don't have a lot of passive recreation space in this community. We have structured play, we have playgrounds, we have fields, we have tennis courts, but we don't have a lot of passive places where people can just take a stroll, or they can go for a walk, or they can have a seat, or they can, have a picnic. We don't have a lot of that. And that area is quiet enough that we could actually beautify the space, create a nice green space, do something like that, and then, have people engaging in it in a different way. So we don't have a fixed and firm plan, but we do have something that we'd like to do, and we want to present it to the community specifically, and then, see what their response is. Everything costs money. I know there's a lot of comments about what we're kind of spending to help us determine money down the road that we may spend, but capital projects are very expensive, and we want to make sure that we're doing it right and we're meeting the need of the community. A play structure can cost up to $250,000, $300,000 if we wanted it to. And so, before we invest that kind of money, which is a 25-year investment over time, because they last 25 to 30 years, or in the case of Alexander Park, 60 years, whatever it is, we want to make sure we're doing it right.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really exciting to hear what's happening in our parks. Alexander Park is, every time I bike by there, it's just an underused space, and it's kind of sad. And I wonder, with that quiet corner, if there's a demographic or an age group or something that was targeted for that people could go there and use that.
Heidi, what do you want over there?
Well, I'm from that neighborhood. Yeah. So yeah, having it has been underutilized. When I was running daycare, I even offered to manage the water hole feature, because there used to be like a little splash pad there, but it was beyond its use and it leaks, so it had to stay off. But demographically, we have seen a bit of a shift, not really a shift. We have as 20 years ago when I moved into the neighborhood, about the same amount of young children in the neighborhood as when we moved in there. But people move in, we don't move out. So it is an aging demographic. So to have a beautified space with, maybe a water feature and some park benches and something where you can just go and relax and picnic kind of type thing, I think that would be very beneficial for that end of town, because people walking, like we have people walk from across town to our end of town just because, Smith Falls is only like 10 kilometers. So it'd be nice for them to have a break when they're walking through, and people coming from Montague and stuff in, they don't have to go all the way to Lower Reach just to sit and have a picnic.
Well, come on out.
Have a little downgrade, because we do have that, it's kind of a businessy end of the street where Alexander is, but in respect, on the weekends it's quiet because the transports don't really go too much on the weekends.
But yeah, and to that, Lucy, is one of the things we're recognizing is that you don't really want to oversee, the backyard. You don't really want to look into the backyard of the transport or whatever it is. So we want to put trees there. You know, trees make space great. So, and I know that some people disagree with that, but I think if we can have a space that's beautified, that doesn't look neglected or abandoned. And so we haven't done much with it last year because we were sort of trying to figure out what we could do with it and get some information. But we want to make sure, like I said, we're doing it right. And to give some passive space or have a picnic shelter where somebody could go is we don't have a lot of that in town. And so wouldn't it be cool if we could have that as a draw? And so one of our staff actually really wants a water feature, so maybe we'll make sure I'll direct him. He's drawn it out in paint, like in great detail.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So we're pretty excited about it because it'll be a couple of years to develop, but I think it could be something really incredible.
Well, I think, to echo your points, it's a very exciting project and thrilled that, things are going to be improved, and I think it's gonna be beautiful. One of the things that I kind of thought about is, I don't know if anyone has any suggestions at the moment, or if we want to kind of think about it as projects get closer to completion, how we could promote that the features are changing. For example, that the new swing that's coming in, and just put that out there. Is there a way that we want to put that out there so that people know that that's coming, and when it happens that people actually do visit that with perhaps a child with a disability, that they say, oh, we can go there, we can take him or her there because they can function. Does anyone have any ideas on how to promote that at this time, or do we want to kind of think about that? Or Panko?
Yeah, we were our communications coordinator, who manages all of our social media, all our communications, frankly, and works with each of the department heads and directors to promote, seek information, gather information, communicate. So I think we can probably, between Stephanie and Joanne, can work together on that.
Work together.
She was mentioning earlier during the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was actually just saying, and she's going to watch this in a little bit too, but she was actually just saying, how do we promote the stuff that we do really well? And so, because, it's easy to post things online that are not great, and we need to listen to that. We need to hear it. We need to understand what we're not, where we're not meeting the standard we'd like to. But, we also do a lot of really great things, and our staff do a lot of really great things. And so it was funny when you said that. I was smirking a bit because it's exactly what Joanne messaged me. It was like, how do we do this and make sure we get all that good stuff out there? Yeah.
How do you do that? You take it beyond here and put it in other people's brains elsewhere.
Yeah. You too, in my head.
A few social media things.
All right, well, I will, Councilor McGuire.
I had a question on the sidewalks. The curb cut is great, but then you've got that muddy cow path to the sidewalk after it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way we could include that small section in part of the sidewalk works for this year?
Well, that's a great question, Councilor McGuire. I would refer you to Vanessa Bernke. I'll ask her.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough budget, but yes, I think if we can, we certainly would make it happen. We also have that flagged for stone dust if it doesn't get, which is not ideal, but as an interim, it's better than mud.
All right, does anyone have any other questions or comments right now? No? Seeing none, so we will move on to our fourth priority issue, which, as I have, is a social media update with regard to the AODA, and Director Clark we'll leave that discussion, so I will turn it over to the director.
Thank you. Just a really quick update. I received a few comments based on the last email I sent out around the social media update for the AODA commentary. Joanne Ponce, our communications marketing coordinator, is working on creating some text and messaging, images, that kind of thing to send out as a general social media blast, just in an ongoing way. So she's been working on that, and hopefully in the coming weeks we'll see some stuff start pushing out on behalf of the committee. So if anyone else thinks of any other like snippets of language that you want to send my way, really about whatever, you can feel free, but about the AODA that's and the upcoming deadline, then just, feel free to send it my way. Or if you see another great campaign somewhere else that you think you should take a look at, please do just send them my way, and I can connect with Joanne and she can hopefully mesh that in if it works.
Perfect. Thank you. So
I've got the railway roundtable discussion now.
okay.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So we will, I have been in contact with Gloria Foster from the Railway Museum, and she has expressed interest in getting together with this committee, and discussing what ways could they use the grant that they have recently been awarded, and just kind of some of our ideas how that could be used. And she would like to have a roundtable with us to have that discussion. So I'd like to set a date for that. She would like it to be in the next few weeks if possible. So if we could do that tonight, that would be great. Does anyone have anything that they can't do? Any dates that, Courtney?
Every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 7 when
Oh, okay.
So are we looking into maybe the second week of July? Is that something potentially? That's the week of the 8th to the 12th, I guess.
Sure.
Sometime.
Councilor McGuire.
Is it something we could incorporate into our meeting for July, or does it need its own standalone?
That is a good question. I did ask her if she would like to come as a delegation and do that, and she would prefer to have it as a separate meeting altogether, just so that we could really focus on that one discussion, and we're not trying to incorporate that into whatever other agenda items we have for our own meeting. Mayor Panko.
Just from a procedural standpoint, it's not a meeting of this committee.
No.
It's simply we've been invited to speak with representatives of REMO to discuss how they can utilize their grant to improve accessibility, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Because otherwise we would have to follow some of our procedures if it was our meeting. So I think it's probably good to keep it separate.
Did she give any dates?
No, she didn't.
Evening, daytime?
She would like it to be in the next few weeks, and that's as much as she specified.
Sounded like she was willing to work around some of our schedules.
Yeah, she
So-
had asked me to bring it forward to the committee and get feedback. Councilor McGuire.
Maybe just with Corey and Jennifer away, if we did a poll,
an email.
Yeah, I can send a couple.
a poll,
Yeah,
see everybody's schedule.
that might be, that's.
That makes
a good
sense, yeah.
idea.
Give it up to summer, might be hard to start to schedule in holidays.
Okay. Done. Duncan J.
Thank you so much. And now we will move on. Courtney wanted to talk about something at Duncan J. So Courtney.
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to give a little shout out and share what Duncan J did. I thought it was great. So I volunteer at Duncan J, and Miss Krogi and Madame Aaliyah, they took part in the UCDSB Ideas project, and they had acquired 10 wheelchairs, and they brought them into the gym, and they had everyone from grade 5 to 8 come into the gym and partake in wheelchair basketball. And I got to go in and kind of like play with them and
Show 'em how to do it?
Well, not really show them how to do it. There was some of the kids that were better at shooting than I was. But it's just, it was really great that they took the time to do something like that and show. They have one student there who's in a wheelchair, and her face just like lit up when all the other students were playing and stuff. It was great. Just like it showed inclusivity and stuff, and everyone was like, my arms are so sore after this, and they were like, man, this must be hard for doing it like all the time. But it was really great that they did that. And they also part of that project was they talked with me and a few other people about ways they could make their school more accessible, and they made a few changes and added in some more ramps and buttons to open doors for other students. So I just thought it was really great that they were doing that, and it was right after our accessibility week and stuff.
What was the name of the project?
It was the Ideas Project from the UCDSB.
That's certainly wonderful that they are bringing that awareness, and I think it's even more wonderful that they're teaching kids to accept people with disabilities at such a young age. You know, really form their opinion around those people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They were all
That's-
super eager to participate, and they were happy to do it too, so it was really good to see that.
That's very nice to
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I do echo your shout out to them, and thanks for doing that. And perhaps that's something we could get other schools on board with.
That's what I was
Sure.
hoping. Other people would hear it, and other schools would maybe like pick it up for next year.
So if I could, Mayor Panko and I spent a lovely, very warm couple hours at Duncan Jay today. So we were invited to go through a little bit of a tour, some of their classrooms. And the first classroom, they were the cutest. The second classroom was pretty cute too, but you gotta be careful. And so they created a communication board that they wanted to share with us and see if we would be interested as a town in partnering with them in some way in getting those communication boards into our playgrounds and parks. And so the idea was born of recognizing that a classmate of theirs was nonverbal and didn't have the capacity to communicate in the same way that some of the other students did. And so they worked through the year to figure out how to better communicate. Some of them learned some signs in terms of sign language. And then they recognized that the communication board was a really phenomenal way to communicate in the classroom. And then they would go outside and they played for recess. And then they were back to not being able to communicate with this friend of theirs. And so they said, well, why can't we have this outside as well? So they worked really hard and created this nice big board, this communication board that's very visual. And their request is that we put it in some of our parks and our playgrounds. And so we're looking into that, and I think that's a really cool idea. So, which dovetails really nicely with the direction that we have from council in terms of making our parks and playgrounds more inclusive and more accessible. We were excited, I think, because we looked at each other at the same time. We're like, we're going to tell the accessibility committee about this tonight. And so it's so exciting because you have a group of 8 to 10-year-olds that were showing kindness and inclusivity and awareness of their surroundings. And it was just the coolest thing to see this group come together and recognize how powerful communication was. And I just thought, man, the kids are all right. This is so exciting. And so, that was awesome. And then I just think that, we're going to try our best to make it happen. And
there is no try. There is only do. Come on.
Well,
Yoda would say.
I want to temper expectations because I can't have it done next week. But if I can get anything done, it will be certainly this, because I think it makes such good sense. And then also, we spoke with the principal who has very big ideas and very big dreams, and I think that the school seems to be moving towards that, which is, with really great leadership comes awesome opportunity. And so We also heard a lot about how these young people in the school are, made to feel welcome and whole and just a really cool vibe in a school, and how they're building community outside. And so one of the things I'm really excited about is 10 years from now, well, maybe 20 years from now, when the communication board is still out there, those kids that were in grade 3 can say, I did that, that was me. There's my class on it. And people need to see themselves in this community and take pride in that. So that's really exciting. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Well, it was fabulous, and those who don't know, I have a autistic granddaughter who will be 7 later this month. She's nonverbal, and she does her best to communicate, and she has a binder which has a lot of images in there where she can point to whatever she wants, right? And this just seemed like an expansion of that. When she doesn't have her binder with her, anybody who's in that situation who's nonverbal can go to the. And I think I'd love to see one here as well, town square, town hall somewhere. So just so that they're relatively accessible in town. But to see the kids come up with this and how willing or how they really wanted to try and help understand better their classmate and for her to understand them. And you can picture this thing maybe being down Lower Reach Park, maybe it's by the splash pad. And you can imagine just seeing a couple of people there interacting and understanding what the barrier that's come down because that's there. I think even for the broader community to see it and recognize that even though most of us communicate verbally and fine, there are people who have great difficulty, and just enabling that to happen is really heartwarming to see it.
It is, it's great to see inclusivity and progress in the town. It's just wonderful, and we're working. It's only getting better, and it's just wonderful to be part of that, and to see that happening. Shout out to all involved in that. I think if nobody else has any questions or comments, I think that does wrap up our priority issues.
I think Courtney had one other thing.
No, one other.
One more?
Pedestrian subway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The pedestrian subway. Okay, my question before I start is, who is responsible for maintaining that? And how often is it maintained and checked out? Because that is supposed to be an accessible to all pathway if you're walking, biking, stroller, whatever. And I've seen a lot of comments about how it's not maintained and there's constantly garbage, broken glass, needles, and it's not safe or really accessible. Like myself personally, if I was to push myself down there, broken glass, it's going to get in my wheels, pop a tire, cut my hands, somebody walking with their animal, cut paws, pushing a stroller, like just.
So I think, and Director Clark can probably weigh in as well. We believe it's ultimately owned by Canadian Pacific.
Okay.
Maybe CN, I'm not sure the exact title there, but the town, I think, is long. We have an easement through there, I guess, for some water and sewer services, which are right adjacent, I think, to the tunnel. I'm not sure. I think we've long sort of maintained it. I know we put money into to replace lights a few years ago. That was like $7,000 or $8,000, but they continue to get destroyed. And so we've had conversations even this week about it and what do we do going forward, because it is a problem area. I mean, I lived in that part of town a long time ago, 50 years ago, and used to be scared to go through there as a kid.
Yeah.
It's always had the problem. And I don't know if there's an easy fix. We could improve the lighting. We could put security cameras up, make that kind of investment, and 2 days later it could be damaged. So I think what we need to do, and I talked to our CEO about this earlier this week, we need to understand how widely used it is. And if it's not widely used, why? Is it because it's not considered safe? Is it inaccessible? And decide, is it make sense to somehow maybe enhance it and make it safer? Or do we simply close it up and prevent people from doing bad things in there. I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's important that we get some feedback, especially from people in that part of town who may use it as that shortcut to avoid, to get downtown, right?
I do live on that side of town. It's kind of a quick way instead of going all the way around.
Yeah.
I know myself personally, sorry, I'll be quick. For like the Santa train, Christmas train and all that
Yeah.
stuff, the main times I use it are for we watch the thing go by on one side and then come under and go over to the other side and watch the other stuff. But the main reason why I don't use it is, like I said, because there's always glass or things down on the ground. It's not so much that I'm scared to be in the dark in there or anything. It's just the state of the ground. Like it's not safe to walk through it because of what's in there.
Yeah, I don't know what our protocols are for checking it. I don't know how frequently it's checked. That'd be public works staff, I assume.
I didn't know if it was the train station that was maintaining that part of it or if it fell on the town.
I think they've, not say wash your hands of it necessarily, but I don't think they do anything to look after it.
I'm just saying, as, you know, we usually avoid, because it is such a quick, from that end of town, for the, like, and kids that live in that neighborhood to go through there to get to, you know, Duncan J is their school area. Used to be St. Francis, because my kids, and it was quick, and we actually made them walk along the busy highway and up the stairs, to avoid that section. Like they'd still kind of get to that section, but they'd have to go under the highway underpass and then up the other stairs onto Montague Street, I think it is.
Yeah.
And go up to the school that way, so they avoided that area completely. And it's just, it was because, it wasn't the fact that I was scared they'd get mugged or something, but the bike tires would get damaged, or there's always, I think because it is such a darkened area of town, there's not a lot of lighting outside the tunnel, let alone inside the tunnel, that at nighttime, that's a good place for some people to hang out.
Yep.
And if I could, this has been an ongoing conversation for longer than I've been with the town, but we did bring it up last year and had some conversations and reached out to various parties, and one of the challenges is that just the structural way that it's built, we can't go up because, well, the train tracks, we can't go down because it's also, we don't believe it's our tunnel, so we can't excavate. If you can touch it, it can get broken. And so we talk about cameras, we talk about lights. The lights actually were ostensibly vandal-proof, but I think they were destroyed relatively quickly, and they were also spray painted. So if you can reach it, just look at the baffles in the arena. If you can reach it, you can wreck it. So the conversation is, yes, as Mayor Panko was saying, we can invest another $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 into lights and so on, that 2 weeks later potentially could just be spray painted. And so is it the right investment? Is it the right use of those funds? But we do take it very seriously, and it has been an ongoing concern that we've been trying to figure out. And so unless you can see it from the road and see right through from the road, which you can't, so we'd have to do some major reconstruction in that area in order to bring in the light, as you say. Then we have to think of something else, I think, and it's a much bigger problem, and obviously it's been a 50-year problem.
So I don't even mean like so much as putting lights in and stuff. I just mean like, because as citizen, I reached out before, and I want to say Nico Murphy, thank you to him for doing it, because he swept and picked up a whole garbage bag's worth of garbage on his own to try and, make it usable, because he had to help a woman and carry her dog through because its feet were going to get cut, but it was a quicker to go through the tunnel thing. So just like, even just weekly having somebody go through and like pick up the garbage in it and like sweep it out. Is there somebody in town or a position in town where that can be done?
So we can check on that, yeah, and see. I don't know what the protocols are now. I guess every staff member sort of has their work plan, what they do throughout the week. That's more operational. I don't know that how often they do it, or if it's included, but we can definitely check and maybe bring information back next month's meeting.
Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I used it as a kid to play it with friends on Conde Street. I still use it once or twice a month. It's gross. But also the ramps to it aren't accessible. Like it's not the
No,
one.
you have to be
right?
like my partner has to push me down it because the incline's so strong. But like still, somebody with a stroller or a bike can get down it.
Yeah. So like I get that we can't make it bigger, we can't move the lights, but if we could make the lights in a way that we could scrape off the paint easily. And I know there's, because I remember researching it when the last lights went in, they were heavy duty, but they weren't really the best, the heaviest duty we could have put in there. So I don't know, but yeah, I don't know where it is on the, like it's not part of the asset management plan. It's not part of our,
Not our asset.
so maybe it's something that the committee might want to do a motion or get that political capital rolling or some momentum going on it to bring it up, because I think it's a really important link. And if kids, when kids are going to school, if they're afraid to use it,
I'm not so much the kids, my kids are not, but it was mom.
well,
who
the
said,
parents
stay
are
away from
their
it.
kids.
Yeah.
And I get it, because the last time I went through there on my bike, it was like, I'm gonna lose a tire here.
Not another new time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all for me.
Well, thanks for that, Courtney, and Councilor McGuire, thanks for weighing in as well, and, perhaps a motion is something we could think about doing some point in the future and get that, and thanks to Mayor Panko for their investigation on that and, bringing it to whoever it needs to be brought to.
Well, and just I got a text from our director of Public Works, message email a while ago about it. So they're trying to determine ownership. So we're getting some legal insight into how she's responsible for it.
Okay.
And I think just to be clear, because I've dealt with this kind of experience before, we're not trying to find ownership so that we can push it onto somebody else. It's that we want to make sure if we own it, then we can take care of it. We can't go and upgrade someone else's asset without their permission. So if it comes down to it where it is CPKC that owns it, and we want to make the investment to upgrade it, they could get mad at us. It could be litigious, it could be a problem. So just, for people watching at home too, just to be clear, we're not trying to understand ownership just so that we can clarify the roles, but also so that we can make sure that we're following the protocols that we need to, so we don't overstep.
All right, I think that wraps up that priority issue unless anyone has any further. No, seeing none. So if I'm correct, I think that does wrap up our priority issues. I think that was all the amendments that been addressed. So we'll move on. We have no correspondence items this evening. As well, no in-camera issues, which brings us to the discussion regarding our next meeting date. And I'll let Director Clark lead that discussion.
So if we have if we participate in a meeting sometime in July with the RMEO, do we want to host a meeting, like a typical committee meeting in July? Or do we want to not do that? What's the feeling? Because I know summertime it's an interesting crapshoot for the summer. Okay. So later in July, maybe
Don't let me be the voice for everyone.
Yeah.
just throwing it out there, okay? So
So
we're looking at the week of so the 29th, 30th, 31st, the 1st of August. So the 29th is a Monday, so that's out. So the Tuesday or the Wednesday, you said you can't do Tuesdays, so the 30th.
6 to 7, I have soccer for my
Okay, so the 31st, Wednesday the 31st.
Councilor McGuire, I think you.
Yeah, maybe, I think, did she do alternating Wednesdays when she works?
She
Or
doesn't always know, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
just if there was, a way to try
Yeah.
to fit.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to tentatively schedule for the 31st and then, because I know Corey will likely be back, he just had something today, but I'm not sure if Jen can make it. I'd like her to just be able to come, but,
Well, I guess at least we get it in there.
okay.
Tentatively pencil in July 31st then? Okay, so I think that wraps up our proceedings this evening. If everybody's okay with that, we can adjourn now. So I will have somebody move to adjourn, please. Heidi, thank you. Could I have someone second Heidi, please? Courtney, thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. And I will see you next month. Good night.